Hello there, and welcome to the video. My name's John, I'm a musician, and today I want to talk about writing music, or composing, if you prefer. Speaking of which, have you ever gotten writer's block? It's supposedly a thing that happens to everyone in creative fields at some point or other. You sit down to make something, whether it's a piece of music, or a novel, or a listicle about fast food condiments, and you just can't think of what to do. The proverbial creative juices have dried up, and you are up the creek without a paddle in the murky middle of a mixed metaphor. Well, I want to share a quote with you that has to do with this very thing. It comes from Stephen King. Wow, Stephen King, the American Major League Soccer player? You may be saying. No, not that one. Oh, then Stephen King, the Australian TV and stage actor? Still no. We're talking about Stephen King, the author. Now, Stephen King, the author, is pretty famous, but if you don't know who he is, he's one of the most successful American novelists currently living. He specializes in horror. Many of his works have been made into films like It, Cujo, The Green Mile, all sorts of things. He is also pretty famously prolific, having published 64 novels, 5 nonfiction books, and 200 short stories. So this guy knows how to get work done. I enjoy Stephen King as much as anyone. I recently watched Misery with some friends, and it was pretty good. But my interest in talking about him today is not to say that he's great or that you should like him, but rather that I think what he has to say about all this productivity could be useful to creative people. So let's take a look at this quote. Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work. This comes from his work On Writing from the year 2000. This is a really simple quote, but the more I look at it, there are more things that I like about it. First, this is just good advice. Anybody who has spent any amount of time in a creative field can tell you that while writing or composing or painting is usually very fun and fulfilling, it kind of can't be like that all the time. There are going to be times where you don't feel that spark of inspiration, where it feels like work. And the reality is, if you're going to spend enough time doing something to make a career out of it, you're more likely to run up on this, maybe even more often than not. And I think it's just very important to recognize that this isn't a problem. It's really okay. You don't have to blame yourself for this. It doesn't mean that you're not a real artist if you have times where it takes some discipline to stay on task, or if you struggle to feel inspired, or if you find that you've accidentally stolen the melody from the Friends theme song or something. It's also helpful to reframe our thinking of how creating itself can work. You may be the type of person who, when you first started creating, you felt the excitement and the urgency and like there couldn't possibly be enough time to execute all the great ideas you had. Or you might be the type of person who thinks, I'd love to write some music, but I just can't think of anything to write. I just don't have any ideas. The field in which I would grow my creative genius lies barren and parched. Both of these are kind of dependent on inspiration, which is a hard thing to nail down. You could ask a lot of people how they even define inspiration, and you would get a lot of different answers. But the thing that many people find is that by growing your skills and just applying yourself consistently, the inspiration can often come out of just going to work, as King puts it. I like the casual nature of that. We tend to think of artistic inspiration as kind of a mystical thing, but going to work is a pretty mundane concept, and it is absolutely okay and sometimes inevitable if some of the times that you sit down to create art are a bit mundane. I mean, if you do it every day, it's bound to happen. King is also drawing a comparison between amateurs and professionals here, and this is the place where I might take a small bit of issue with the quote. Being an amateur is not a bad thing. It just means that you're doing something out of enjoyment rather than in a professional sense. Make no mistake, every art there is needs amateurs. One of my jobs is teaching private music lessons. And the majority of the people who come to me for lessons aren't planning on becoming professional musicians. They're doing it because they enjoy it. They're doing it as an important part of their education or just to broaden their horizons. Not for nothing, but even though you're not a cat, you still need enrichment in your environment. So, amateurs are very important. And if you are trying to be a professional at something, it doesn't mean that you love it less. It just means you got to go to work every day. Now, I don't want to give you some kind of hustle culture message here. In fact, I want to point out that sometimes people come away from conversations like this and think that what they're supposed to do is immediately embark on some kind of intense and ultimately unsustainable regimen to get their work done. But I've been there. A lot of other people have been there. and it usually doesn't work so well. And even in the times when it does work, you'll be trading your health and your happiness for something that isn't even the most efficient way. One of the best examples I have for this is when a student is preparing a piece on their instrument for a recital. Far and away, the best way to prepare a difficult piece for performance is to methodically rehearse it with consistency over time. But sometimes people get it in their head that if they just wear themselves out and focus really hard, then they can skip the overtime part. But it just doesn't work. An hour a day, every day, beats 10 hours in one day, every time. So, I think we should always be searching for the right balance for ourselves with anything that we do. There is much to be gained from approaching your art with humility and discipline and consistency, especially if you do want to make a career out of it. The arts can be fun and work at the same time, and if you show up with consistency for that work, you'll probably be surprised that the inspiration, whatever that means for you, won't leave you hanging for too long. All right. Thanks very much. That's all I've got to say today. What do you think about this? What do you think about Stephen King? What do you think about writing music? Let me know. All right. Thanks very much. Have a good one.